Raise your hands if you've ever heard of the name Nathan Hale. Some of you guys might. Raise your hand if you know who Nathan Hale is. If you've ever heard of the name, Nathan Hale. Nathan Hale, Nathan Hale. All right, one. We'll see if you're right by the end, okay? Just nod your head if you're right. Got it. Oh, you went to a school called Nathan Hale?
Yeah.
You don't know why the founder is Hawaiian. You're going to find out now. You're going to find out now. All right, here's Nathan Hale. Guys, around the late 17th century, around the late 18th century, okay, late 1700s, all right, during the American Revolution, there was a lot of people, a lot of individuals that were willing to say, you know, sign up for the cause of liberty and say, Lord, I want to do my part. I want to be able to help. They really believed in what the charter was saying, what these individuals and what America was starting to do and wanting to become, and say, yo, sign me up. I want to do it. Let's go. But the thing is that they had a lot of issues. First off, that the army that made up the American Revolution was just a bunch of people, honestly, like you and me. It was a bunch of farmers. It was a bunch of regular folk. It was a bunch of teenagers and 20-somethings and 30-somethings. I mean, that was it. And they didn't have much. This was not a professional group of individuals going against the largest and most powerful army and most well-trained army in the world. And Nathan Hale was one of those guys who signed up. And Nathan Hale was a school teacher. Okay? He was a teacher. And he says, I want to make a difference. I want to be a part of something. And Nathan Hale was barely into his 20s. And he signed up to join the cause. But so he goes out there, but him and his friends and his department, his crew where they were at, because everything wasn't super organized and because of what it was, okay, there wasn't a lot of action. And so they just kind of sat around just waiting for an opportunity. But what made it really difficult, see, the army struggled, the early America and the Revolutionary Army struggled with retaining their enlisted volunteers. Now, number reason why they couldn't retain them is because of money. All right? I mean, Congress back then this is just a nation that wasn't even barely a nation. And so they had trouble paying some of the soldiers. So some of the soldiers were like, look, man, I love y'all, but I gotta make a living. Like, I just can't do this. It's like, I gotta go back to work. I gotta go back to my farm. I gotta do this. I just can't. And so there were so many of them would go and they would come back and go and come back. Nathan Hale was not getting paid. And he was not going anywhere because he truly believed in what he wanted to do and he wanted to make a difference. He was so into it. Him and his friends that were enlisted, waiting. They haven't seen any action yet. They're just waiting on the sidelines, waiting for their name to be called. And so he was afraid of seeing so many people going back home and leaving and, you know, rejecting serving. He actually took some of his own money that he had saved up from his own salary of being a teacher, and he would try to give it to others. He wasn't making any extra money as a soldier either. And he was taking the money trying to say, no, look, just let me help you out. Let me just give you a little bit. Stay. Finally, the opportunity came up, and they said, all right, guys, we need help. We need help. And a few of them got excited, but the excitement went away super quick when they said, we need spies. They were like, oh, okay. Call me back when you need something else. See, spies, guys, were, to be a spy, I mean, nowadays, being a spy sounds cool. We think of James Bond, we think of stuff like that, Jason Bourne, all those things. I mean, being a spy is like, all right, 007, just putting cool gadgets and all this stuff. It's nice. We got this image of what a spy is. Back then, a spy was a spy, but the spy was a very dangerous profession. High risk, little reward for many, okay? High risk, little reward. You didn't get all the gadgets. You didn't get all that cool, fancy stuff that you had back then, that we see now. None of that. And so it was also something that not a lot of people would see as, that's an honorable job. I mean, no, man, I don't want to do that. So they needed, the American cause needed spies. Nathan Hale says, I'll serve. I'll do it. And they were like, whoa, and all his friends were trying to get him moved. No, don't. Please, bro, you can't do this. Don't be a spy. He was like, why? It's like, I want to do something. I don't want to sit here any longer. Well, there's people out there fighting. It's like, I want to be a part of something. I want to contribute. I was like, dude, don't, man. And one of his excuse that a lot of his friends and family would tell him, he's like, bro, you're a horrible liar. I mean, you gotta have to lie to be a spy. You do. It kind of goes hand in hand. You gotta lie to be a spy. And bro, you're no good. You're not a good liar. And he was like, I don't care. I want to make a difference. I want to go. So he goes and gets his first mission. He signs on, goes across enemy lines, goes where he finds intel, finds certain things, and gets caught on the way back. On his first mission, he gets caught. Now here's the British, and there's the British, and they're saying, all right, who are you? Checking that. They found information on him. They found out who he was and what he was trying to do. And then we're like, all right, well, tell you what, we have a proposition for you, Nathan. What if you don't tell them we caught you? And what if you spy for us? We'll let you go. We'll let you go. You take this, we'll let you go. You go and tell them some made up stuff. Tell them lies, tell them, fake intel. And then come back to us and you snitch on them. And we'll let you go free. First off, remember when I told you Nathan was a horrible liar? For some of you, you'd be like, he's a horrible thinker on his feet. Because he actually, if it was you, what would you do? I'm like, wait, so you'll let me go if I promise to come back? Yeah. Okay. I was like, I'm done. I was like, hey, let me get like, how many of you would have done that? I don't know, I would have been tempted to lie to them. I was like, sure, I'll serve you. I'll be back tomorrow. Disappeared. I was like, whew, that was close. So, but Nathan didn't even do that. He totally could have done that and lived. And he told them, smack in their face, and said, I'm never going to serve you. I'm not going to serve the crown. I'm not going to serve the crown for nothing. So they take him, arrest him, take his stuff, sentence him to hanging. And so, right, here's this 20-something-year-old dude. He, by all means, we would label his life right now a failure, right? His first mission, busted, and he could have lied. He could have lied to get out of it and brought good intel. He could have lied. And he chose to do the honorable thing and said, nah, man, I'm not going to lie. And so he goes and he's standing there and he's facing his executioners. And this is when he opens up. And I asked you a minute ago, who's Nathan Hale? No one said his name. Well, raise your hand if you've heard this. Because right as he's about to be executed and by hanging, he speaks and says, I regret I only have one life to lose for my country. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of that phrase. That's that phrase. I regret. So here's a dude. I was like, I regret. I should have told him I was going to. He was like, I should have said I was going to spy for them, so I'd be home right now. I was like, I regret. What did he regret? He says, I regret I only have one life to lose for my country. To him, that wasn't a wasted mission. And that phrase, that deathbed declaration of Nathan Hale's had echoes still into today. That phrase inspired hundreds of thousands of Americans to join the cause and to give their only life. They only got one life to live. Well, I'm going to give them, make it count. And even till today, that phrase still speaks volumes. I mean, apparently we got a school named after the guy. Why? Because of his boldness, because of his heart, because of his declaration, because of the honor that he showed. He says, I only regret I only have one life to lose. Those were his final words. And then he died. See, guys, I don't know about you, we love when we think of, deathbed confessions. I don't know, right when you're about to, what would your final words be? Have you ever thought about that? It's I was like, what would your final words be? If my final words, I would love them to be, I don't know, have you ever thought about that? And then if you think about that, then you got to stress. I'm like, what if you got the best, beautiful quote that, I'm going to be remembered for all time, but then you never get a chance to say it. I mean, even if you have great final words, does that mean that you're going to have an opportunity to be able to say that? No. No, it's not. You don't know. But see, here's one thing. I mean, if you knew, it would be different. And none of us know when that day will come. But Jesus, our Lord, knew the day that he was going to die. He knew the day and the moment. And in fact, that he knew the day, and he knew that I want my final words from the cross to matter. And so what we're doing, starting this week and ending on Good Friday, we're going to look at 7 phrases that Jesus said on the cross. Jesus, when he began to be crucified, he was crucified at 9 in the morning. That's when it started. When they put him up on the cross, they anchored the cross into the ground. That was at 9 a.m., the Bible says. We still have that. And we know that he died because of the word, because we know he died at 3 p.m. He hung on that cross from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. And it was one of the most excruciating forms of torture that even exist today. Horrible. And in all of those hours, he talks. In those 6 hours that he's on the cross, he speaks 7 different times. 7 phrases that we're going to look at. One we're going to look at today. And he speaks 7 different phrases on there. Now I want you to understand something about dying on the cross and about that. That dying on the cross is a way of, it was slow torture. I mean, not only do you got, a big nail stuck in your arms and your feet. That's excruciating enough. But the position of the cross, the fact that you are, your arms extended backwards, you are literally putting a lot of pressure on your chest. Eventually, people that would die from the cross wouldn't die from blood loss. They would drown in their own body fluids, in their lungs. They would fill with lungs and they would drown. And it was hard to breathe. It was almost impossible to breathe on the cross. And yet here Jesus speaks 7 times. I want you to know that to speak, if you're going to say something on the cross, you have to go through excruciating pain to be able to say that. You have to at first pull yourself up from the nails in your hands and push from the nails in your feet, your broken feet and hands. You would have to push off of that in order to stand up to get a breath in and then out, because if you sunk back down, it was almost impossible. You were fighting just to breathe, let alone speak. And Jesus knew that in my final words, because of the nature of his execution, he could not waste any efforts, because to speak took a lot. And he made sure every word counted. And guys, see, those that we said a minute ago, we're going to look at Jesus' deathbed declarations, because those 7 phrases still speak to us today. And they can speak to you today. And those 7 phrases speak and still continue to communicate about not only the goodness of God, but also these 7 phrases will give you a good example as Jesus followers on how to behave and how to follow Jesus. So they tell us about the goodness of God, and they give us good examples on how to follow. Because guys, like I said in the video, Jesus' last words, the bottom line for this series is this: Jesus' last words can speak life into your world. If you're listening. His last words can speak life into your world. He made sure that any of his words weren't going to be wasted. He made every word count. So let's look at the first one today. This is Jesus, the first phrase that he says while being crucified. Let's look at the count. This is Luke 23, 32 through 38. Luke was a person who wasn't physically there at the cross. He was a believer that came later on, and he was a doctor. And he went, the Bible says, and we not just the Bible, we have archaeological evidence. He did research and found who were the eyewitnesses that were there, because Luke lived during this time. Luke went and said, okay, who was at the cross? Who was there? Who was that? And he did extensive research to make sure that I want to pen this account to make sure it is accurate. And so here he goes, and this is what he gathered. 2 others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with Jesus, with him. And when they came to the place that is called the skull, they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And now here's Jesus' first words, the first of the 7 phrases. He says this: Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they cast lots to divide his garments, and the people stood by, watching, but the rulers scoffed at him, saying, he saved others, let him save himself. If he is the Christ of God and the Son of God, he is the chosen one, right? Let him save himself. The soldiers also mocked, coming up and offering him sour wine, fake offerings. Oh, if you're the king of the Jews, then man, save yourself. There was also an inscription over him: this is the king of the Jews. So, all of this is happening at the very beginning, a little past 9 in the morning. It would have been, right now it's 11 something. And Jesus' first phrase is what? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Again, not one phrase was wasted. And we got to look, because since this is the first phrase, it matters probably the most. Because everything after that, we see it's because of this right here. This is so important. It goes first. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. What did you see in look what Luke, the scene Luke was picturing. You have a bunch of people, right? Religious leaders. These were people that had known that God had promised a Messiah. One person who would come to save the world and to save the world of their sins, set things right. And here, the ones that should have known, the ones that should have been the first to welcome him and to accept him, the first to proclaim to everyone, this is the promised Messiah. They knew the word better and the prophecies better than anyone. And they were the first ones to turn their back and to kill the Messiah. They didn't know. They were making fun of Jesus. Oh, he's the Son of God, right? They had no clue that he was. Because if they did, things would have been different. You had a bunch of people standing around, sitting, just watching. For them, things like this was kind of the entertainment of the day. I mean, people, we don't change, We still like to watch people, whether it be violent sports or this or that. They didn't have movies. They didn't have, a lot of things that regular folk can go to. So the thing to do is, hey, you want to catch that execution at 9 or you want to do the matinee at 5:30? That was kind of a thing that they did. And so let's go check it out, whatever. And so here you have just a bunch of people just watching. Like, okay, I wonder how long this was going to take. I don't know, let's see what's going on. Just watching. Not knowing that in front of them was every prayer that they've ever prayed. Every prayer, the answer to every prayer they've ever prayed was standing in front of them. And they were just watching, just spending the afternoon, spending the morning. They didn't know. Even the Romans that were there, they just thought for them it was just Thursday. It was Friday. It was another day at work. It was another day at work for them. They had no clue that the hands that they were holding to the cross were the same hands that held their salvation. They had no clue. No clue. And here Jesus is saying, forgive them. God, they don't know what they're doing. Guys, do you hear in that phrase God's love screaming? That's God's grace right there. You know what's amazing about this phrase also? Is that here we see God's love active despite injustice, despite misunderstanding, all of the things that are happening. We see God's love active in the midst of a horrible circumstance. None of that changed. None of that changed. And so here, he was experiencing the most unthinkable thing that anybody could go through because they lacked understanding. They lacked understanding. They had no clue what they were doing. They didn't know. Guys, you know that right there, when Jesus prayed, Father, forgive them, do you know who's included in that them? You. When he said, Father, forgive them, because, guys, he wasn't on the cross because of those people necessarily. He was on the cross because of all of us, because of all of our sins, our culminated sins. He was there because of us. And so for him, when he says, Father, forgive them, that was a future and a past and a present them. It's all of them. God, forgive all of them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know that, they don't know the life of choosing, what is this lifestyle of sin. So many of them, they don't even know that they're even enslaved to sin. God, forgive them. They don't know. They don't know. You know what I love about that phrase? Is that despite us not knowing, that didn't change God's heart. Notice what are the alternative? He could have been on the cross and be like, save yourself. I was like, I'm trying to save you. I was like, he could have been all snappy, right? And, clap back and like, no, I'm trying to save you. What you talking about? Can you leave me alone for a little bit? This hurts, okay? I'm trying to hang in there, all right? I'm trying to save you. So can you give me 5 minutes, all right? Can you at least let me die in peace? Do you think he did that? No, he could have done that. He could have totally done that. And just whatever it had been, he could have been. I was like, y'all don't appreciate what I'm doing for you right now. I was like, if you only knew. If you only knew, I was like, oh, ungrateful little whatever. So I was like, just wait, just watch. Just watch when I wake up 3 days from now, see what's going to happen. I was like, right? He's like, he totally could have done that. He was like, y'all don't appreciate nothing. I was like, y'all right here, look at this. I was like, he could have been like that. He could have, any of one of us would have been tempted to say that. Or to be like, all right, save me, so I can't say. I'm going to remember this when I wake up. Guess who's not getting saved today? I was like, not you, not you, not you, not you, not you, not you, not you. Okay? He could have been, I'm going to remember your faces. All right? Next time you come pray to me, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, see what happened now. I was like, what changed? Well, what changed? Okay? He could have been like that, but he wasn't. He didn't. What did he do? God forgive them. They have no clue what they're doing. They have no clue what they're doing. And you know what's amazing? So here's this. Check this out, guys. If you could know, if I make this one decision today, do you think it would be a pretty cool superpower to know that, man, for every decision that I make, I will know the ultimate domino effect ramification of that decision? Don't you think that would be a pretty cool superpower? To know if I go here, if I go to this restaurant instead of that restaurant, I'm going to end up saving money. I'm going to meet that one person. Oh my gosh. And do you think that would be an amazing superpower to know every choice you would make, what that would result to? That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. right? And do you think that life would be a little better if you could have understanding that everything I do, I know what the impact is going to be? That'd be interesting. It'd be an interesting superpower to have. But let me at least break this down. Don't we at least have some common sense? If I know that if I do this, I know the chances of this kind of happening probably going to happen. But, right? Don't we do that? Don't we have a basic understanding of common sense to know that if I make this decision, it could lead to this, it could lead to that? And so how many of us know this is the right thing to do? But how often? Knowing this is the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing to do, knowing that if I do this, it's probably going to lead to that, how many of us still default and do the wrong thing? See, guys, look, Jesus, because, hey, God, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Do you know why Jesus died? Jesus didn't die so you and me can make better informed decisions. Okay? He didn't die on the cross just so we can have better understanding and make better informed decisions. He died for us, not so that we could understand what we can do better. He died because even understanding what the right is, there is something wrong inside of us. We can't consistently always choose to do right. And then that was the other thing. We can't even agree on what is right. What yours right, what you think right is I'm going to have a little different view versus you. And so we can't even figure out what's right, let alone do it consistently. And that's why he was there. And how interesting. What were these individuals saying to Jesus? Oh, if you who are who you say you are, save yourself. Do you know what's interesting in that? The reason why he was doing this is because none of them could save themselves. None of us could save ourselves. I can't. We can't. None of us could truly save ourselves. And here, this is why he's up there. It's like, I'm not here to serve myself. I'm not here to save me. I'm here to save you. I'm giving my life so you can have it. But again, look at this, guys. He doesn't hold it. And look, another thing. This is good news for you today. Listen. God does not hold. To a certain extent he does, but his love for you is not dependent on how well you understand it. It's do you believe? Like, you understand, okay, look, you passed, you got that 97% of understanding who I am, okay, you get love. Okay, okay, I know C's get degrees, but not with me, so no, pass. Right? God's not like that. His love for us is extended because none of us really know the ramifications of this. Because if we did know, if we knew that a life of sin would lead me to hell, I think we'd act a little different. But none of us we're born in this condition. We just don't. We don't know. But this phrase, guys, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. This applies to us. This applies to us. There's so many, guys, there's so many sins that you've done that you have no clue you've done. Do you know that? And you know that God will still hold you accountable? You know that there's sins that you have done you didn't even know were wrong. You just think, it was whatever. I didn't think anything of it. And it was a sin, and you don't even know. You know we're still held accountable to that? You know that we're still even held accountable to the things that we should have done and never did? Do you know sin isn't just doing something, it's also the inaction, doing the wrong thing. I should have done that, I didn't do it, I did something else. And God says, look, and we all do that not knowing the ramifications of it all. Again, but that's why he's here. That's why he hung on the cross. That's why he had to do what he did. He had to do what he did because of that. We had no clue. We didn't know. We didn't know any better, and none of us had the ability to make things better. And so here it is. So do you see the goodness of God in this phrase? How good he is. That despite them not knowing what they were doing, he still was dying. The same soldiers who were torturing him, he was praying for them. The same religious scoffers who were making fun of him, bullying him, he was praying for them. The same guys, everybody who was just sitting idle by, just watching and using that as a form of entertainment for the day, a way of spending the day, he was praying for that. He was praying for us because of his love for us. Now, not only does this phrase tell us about the goodness of God, it also shows us a good example to follow, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness is our example to follow. This is not just something that we should hold on to, it is something that we should follow through on. Forgiving gives you the opportunity to truly move forward in freedom. Guys, this in the same way that Jesus was willing to forgive those individuals, here's where the application now might turn a little less inspirational, it might turn a little harder, more difficult. Because God's calling us to forgive in the same way. In the same way that he was willing to forgive those on the cross, us as believers, we're called to do the same thing. See, if we're going to go back. So the forgiveness, guys, when you truly forgive, you give yourself. You don't, sometimes we think, like, I don't want to forgive that person because they hurt me. I don't want to forgive that person because they lied to me. That person let me down. That person did this and that. And so sometimes we think that forgiving is like giving them a good thing. Like we're doing, like they hurt me and I have to do them a favor? What is that? I was like, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't seem right. But guys, forgiveness, forgiving others gives you the opportunity to truly move forward. And not only in life and in your faith. You guys know that there's still Christians. And I've experienced this. I've found from time to time I need this too. I have to. Sometimes it's not easy to forgive individuals. Sometimes it's not easy to forgive myself. And you guys know that it's so important. Because when you don't forgive, you literally, if forgiving gives you the opportunity to move forward in freedom, then what does unforgiveness do? Unforgiveness creates the opposite effect. Unforgiveness now puts you in jail behind bars of bitterness. That's what unforgiveness does. When you choose to, I don't want to forgive that individual, what you do is you're not hurting that other individual by not forgiving them. You are hurting yourself. When you refuse to forgive others, you are hurting yourself. When you refuse to forgive yourself for things, man, I'm ashamed of what I've done. I'm ashamed of what I've become. And if you hold that against yourself, you hold yourself a prisoner to yourself. But it's when you forgive that you give the opportunity to move forward. And I know this sounds hard. I know that sounds impossible. Because it'd be like, Pastor, you don't know. You don't know what that person did. You don't know what that person said. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be. If it wasn't for that person, I would be in a different spot there. If it wasn't for. I know some of you guys have it harder than others. I got that. But here's the thing. Look what Jesus even, and this one's going to be even worse. Probably some of y'all ain't going to like this one. I hope you're listening. Probably not going to like this one. Jesus was willing to forgive people that didn't know they were doing the wrong thing. That means that he's calling you to be willing to forgive someone else if they don't know that they hurt you. You're still called to forgive a person that hurt you, even if they don't know it. If they did something, said something that bothered you. Some of you are walking around things that your parents said 10 minutes ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, and they have no clue that they hurt your feelings, and you're walking around with that wound still. You're walking around that wound still holding on to that. They have no clue. And so you don't want to forgive them because they don't know. See, you're called to forgive them even though they don't have an understanding of what they did was wrong. And then it gets worse. And what if they know that they said, I know I hurt you. I know I did. You're supposed to forgive them anyways. I was like, you gotta forgive them too. Even if the person knows. What if the person says, look, I forgive you. And what if they're not sorry for what they did? What if they're not sorry for what they said to you, what they did to you? You forgive. Guys, look, a lack of understanding doesn't give you a reason or an excuse to have a lack of mercy. Okay? A lack of their understanding doesn't give you the excuse to have a lack of mercy. Because again, by you refusing to forgive them, who are you really hurting? You. So many people, and there's probably people in this room, you are still walking around hurt and being affected by people who are no longer in your life. They've been long gone. Friends that are no longer friends, or family that are no longer here. People that live in another city, people that work at another job. You don't interact with these people anymore. And yet they still have this hold on you, even though they're not in your life. Why? Because you're refusing to forgive. You refuse to forgive. And you're holding that over yourself. When Jesus was saying, and the reason why he was there, is so that we can be free from all of those things. You know, and here's our example. Well, how can I do that? All right, like, man, you tell me to do that? Sounds impossible. How can I forgive someone who hurt me? Well, what did Jesus do? What did Jesus do? Here he is. People are physically, emotionally, spiritually hurting him, okay? Hurting him in every aspect. The fact that they are rejecting him as who he is, and that he loves them so much and they're rejecting that love. You know what he was hurting? He was hurting. And do you know what did he do? Notice his phrase. Notice what didn't he say? Did he look down and say, hey, Roman, I forgive you. Religious scoffers, I forgive you. All you guys over there, I forgive you. Is that what he said? I want you to listen. Is that what he said? Did he stand up and say, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you? No, what did he say? Father, forgive them. Do you know what he's doing? This is the key right here, guys. This is the key right here. You know what he did? All these people hurt him. And he gave it to his Father. He gave it to God. He gave the offense to God. And because he was able and willing to give it to God, then God was able to give him a love for them. A love for those people that were hurting them. Guys, look, to forgive difficult things on your own, that's impossible. God's not calling you to do that. You know what God is calling you to do before you can forgive someone? You give it to him. Give your offense to God. Because when you give it to him, he takes that offense, he heals your heart, and now gives you a heart for someone else. A way of loving that individual. A way of that, even though this relationship might not happen anymore, you can be free from their hold in your life. That's the only way, guys. You're holding on to it's hard to forgive someone if you're holding on to it. God says, no, do what Jesus did. Father, forgive them. And he gave the offense to his Father. You are called to do the same. That's how we do it. We give it to God.
Amen.
You're saying, but Pastor, that's hard. How can I do that? I don't know if I can do that. Let me tell you a story. Story of a lady named Renee. You have no clue who Renee is. Renee had she had a lot of daughters, a lot of kids. One of them, she had this eldest daughter. She was out driving with her friend. And as they're driving, a man named Eric, 22 years old, was a drunk driver that night, hit Renee's car. Hit Renee's car with her daughters inside, with her daughter and her friend inside. And Renee's daughter died, along with the passenger. And here, she is standing in court, across from this 22-year-old young man named Eric, who because of his poor decisions, her daughter is no longer in this world. The man was sentenced to 22 years in jail for his crime, for what he did, for taking those 2 lives. 22 years in jail. And here's Renee left just to pick up the pieces of her life. I mean, parent having to bury a child. And so here they are, and now God, because she was a believer, God was able to heal her heart. God was able to help her and to give her hope beyond the circumstances. And so God even inspired her to go around the country, and Renee would travel the country telling people about, being an advocate against drunk driving, telling people about the goodness of God and what he can do, and someone's like, there is still hope, even when you are faced with the most difficult circumstances. And that's right there. If the story ended there, that would be pretty great. You think about it, that God could help Renee to not only to pick up the pieces, but do something great, man, move on from life and to be able to do something and contribute. If the story ended there, that'd be great, but it didn't. See, she felt in her heart something was missing from her presentations. Something was missing from when she would go and talk about it. And the Holy Spirit led her to say, you haven't truly forgiven Eric yet. You still blame him for your daughter not being here. So the Holy Spirit led her to go to the jail, to visit Eric. And there, it took everything in her. But she was able to truly forgive that man. For because of him, her daughter is not here any longer. And how was she able to forgive that man? Because she first gave that offense to God and said, God, and she gave her heart to the Lord. She gave the circumstances. God healed her and empowered her to make that decision, to make that choice, and to forgive that individual. And she forgave him truly. If the story ended there, it'd be pretty cool. But not only did God lead her to forgive Eric, the entire family, Renee's family, did the same thing and embraced Eric, forgave him, truly, sincerely, began to visit him, began to send him things, began to love him, to the point that they actually treated him as a part of their own family. They embraced Eric as one of their own. And it wasn't a pity embrace. He truly felt like he was a part of that family. If the story ended there, it'd be pretty cool. But it keeps on going. The family, not only did they just love him and serve him, the family went out and they went to court and fought to have his sentence cut in half. The parents of the deceased child, went to bat for Eric in court. And guess what? The family got his sentence to be cut in half. And he was set free. And he was able to go after only serving 11 instead of 22 years. He was able to go set free. And now here is Renee and Eric going around the country and telling a story. Not just that, hey, there's hope beyond a decision, but the fact that there is hope with God, and look what God can do. If the story ended there, it'd be pretty cool. But this is our last one. Last one, I'll tell you this. Renee's story, Renee took her story. And there was a singer-songwriter named Matthew West. Some of you guys may know who he is. Matthew West is a very popular singer-songwriter. A lot of his stuff gets played on a lot of Christian circles and even secular stations. He's a really talented guy. And so Matthew West, for a season, he was like saying, I just want to write people's stories. I want to hear what are people going through. I want to hear you. Send me your stories. I want to listen, and I want to be able to see and just, if I can take your story and turn it into a song to be able to help others, great, I'll do that. And so he was doing that. And so Renee sent her story in of what had happened and everything, the ramifications, how God was able to help her and her family to forgive Eric. Eric was able to forgive himself. Thing is, even though Eric was in jail, look at the two circumstances. Renee was free, yet she was still enslaved to bitterness. And here's Eric. Not only was he physically enslaved in jail, but he was also emotionally and spiritually enslaved and in jail because he couldn't forgive himself. And not only did God allow Renee to forgive him, God helped Eric to forgive himself for the things that he had done and the pain that he had caused. And so here, they send the story. Matthew West was so inspired. It's like, wow. And he goes and takes that story, and it inspired a song that he wrote. It's out on the radio. It's called Forgiveness. I guarantee you, if you listen to Christian radio, you've heard it. The story behind the song Forgiveness is Renee and Eric's story. So we're going to post it online so you guys can check the story out. And then when you hear the lyrics, I want you to hear it. Think of Renee's story. And like, that's what it was. And so here now, this song has traveled the entire world and has inspired millions of people to be able to willing to forgive the unforgivable because of who God is. Here's if we can put the next slide. Here's the thing, guys. The challenge for today and the application is to forgive the unthinkable. In fact, C.S. Lewis said it this way: to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you.
Amen.
Okay? Guys, I know this sounds weird, but to God, a misdemeanor is the same as a felony.
That's right.
Okay? Sin is sin. And a misdemeanor is the same as a felony. And here, it's like, how can I do that? Well, let me ask you a question. How could God forgive you? How could God forgive me? Because He can means that you can. If Jesus, in the midst of literally being tortured, could give God at that moment the offense, and to be able to pray for us, God can help you to forgive a person or forgive yourself so you can truly move forward in freedom. Because guys, look, forgiveness is this. If you desire a love for others, you got to give God the offense. If you desire to have a love for others, you have to give God the offense. Doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with so-and-so that is not good for you. Doesn't mean that you have to still be buddies with somebody who is emotionally abusive or this or that. It doesn't mean anything. But it is what you're saying is you're giving God your hurt, you're giving God your wounds, you're giving God your baggage, and you're allowing Him to set you free. So you don't have to hold it and drag it along life any longer. Guys, Jesus dragged the cross so you wouldn't have to drag your baggage throughout the rest of your life. We can take it to Him. And so, guys, in this next 21 days, as we start tomorrow, we're going to ask God to start and shift something in our lives today. Because if you want more of God, you're going to have to give Him a little something. Some of you are, especially if you're a believer in Jesus, look, and I'll put myself, I've gone through this too. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you probably have experienced some of this before. You may see, I'm not growing. I still see, man, I believe in Jesus. I know of this, I know of that, but I'm still struggling with this one sin. I still keep on doing the same thing that I tell myself, this is the last time, and I do it anyways, and I know it's the wrong thing, but I find myself doing it, and doing it, and doing it. Or maybe it's patterns of thinking. I was like, I know I shouldn't think of myself this way. I know I shouldn't think like this or be like this, but I still struggle, and I struggle, and I struggle. But I know Jesus, I love Jesus. Well, guys, that doesn't disqualify you. It doesn't mean you're a horrible Christian. Guess what it just means? You're human, like me. And that's where the Holy Spirit of God steps in. To come in, and maybe part of what you need is to forgive someone else. And maybe that's why you've slowed down, you haven't experienced things, your prayers aren't hitting the ceilings, you don't feel like you're going anywhere. It's because you're being weighed down by bitterness. Maybe for some of you, and today's going to be the day, that you don't have to have them in front of you, forgive them. You can forgive them now like Jesus did. We were not in front of Jesus at the cross, yet in that prayer, he was forgiving us because we were the reason he was there. He was waiting, you don't have to physically be, that person doesn't have to be here for you to forgive them. But what I'm going to ask you to do is, if somebody has hurt you, guys, we're going to take a minute and we're going to end in prayer over the next 5 minutes. And I want you to give God that offense. It could have been a word. It could have been something that's still stuck in your head that you still repeat. And you every time you're like, yeah, you mess up. And you're like, yeah, parents always told me I was a screw up. Yeah, and there it is again, messing up again. My teacher always said I wouldn't amount to nothing. I'm still here I am. I can't do anything special. I guess I am not special. And then we just go like that. And guys, the other one, this is going to be the difficult one, maybe for some of you. Maybe some of you aren't able to move forward because you can't even forgive yourself. Maybe you guys are so ashamed of who you are. Maybe it doesn't even have to be sin. To you, maybe it could be like, I wish I could be serving God better, and I feel like I'm not serving God the way I should, and I feel bad about it. And you punish yourself for saying, I'm not serving God the way I should, and you punish yourself. And you hold it against yourself when God is not holding it against you. Again, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Guys, that love that he has for us. He knows that a lot of the stuff that we've done, we didn't read it. Or it just happened the way it was. We didn't know the ramifications. But again, we see his love for us. But if you want to experience that love, if you want to move forward, you have to be willing to forgive and give it to God. Let's do that now. I'm going to ask you to bow your head. I'm just going to walk you through a prayer. I challenge you to do the same thing.